All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Perceptive podcast here on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. I am Josh Bycer, and for tonight, we are catching up with a developer that I've spoken to several times in the past. He is currently working on the game Buluk Mayan Warfare. So, welcome back to the cast, Traevon. How are you doing?
I'm doing good today. Excited to be here. How are you doing today?
I am hanging in there, keeping busy, trying not to think about the oncoming deadline on my next book.
Oh yeah, I get it. You said number five, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I
Yeah.
have
Deadline
officially 31 days left to get it done at the time of this this stream that we're doing.
31. Are you with the publisher?
Yep,
Oh, yeah, that's a hard deadline, man. Oh,
yep.
that's a hard deadline. Like
I would
I have
like to.
31 days.
Yeah, I would like to say that I'm about like halfway to three quarters done, but because I'm talking about like ethical free to play design, that's probably a book within the book. So I have no idea how long that part is going to talk about.
Are you editing right now, or are you still
Still writing.
typing it out?
Oh yeah, still typing. On top of
31
everything
days.
else.
How many pages?
uh, right now, I'm not sure. I'm at about just over 23,000 words though, and
I'll
still
just
no.
spend on this 31 days.
Yep, still going at it. So gotta keep on typing, and I gotta prepare for my top 10 games of 2021 list too. So it's gonna be a very
I look forward
busy
to seeing that.
holiday.
I look forward to seeing that. Yeah, I'm interested to see the other indie games out there because I haven't really been paying that much attention to the indie game development group. You know, the main development group on Facebook. I haven't been.
uh,
You know what I'm talking about?
a little bit. I haven't been on Facebook in a while.
You live on Twitter.
Yeah.
I got. Yeah, that's why when I had when I got went back on Twitter and then I was discussing the podcast with you, I made sure to just keep messaging you on Twitter because I realized you're mostly on Twitter.
Yeah.
So I get it. But yeah, like I'm interested. I gotta start looking at what's around me and see these other indie games. So I'm interested to see your list.
Mm-hmm. All right. And I do see that you're still kind of bringing up a little bit there. If worse comes to worse, we can turn off your you can turn off your video. That should help with the bandwidth, and we'll see how things go there.
Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. Yes, just let me know and I can do that.
Okay. So it has been quite a while since we last spoke. So for people tuning in who have not seen the last cast, can you talk a little bit about who you are and what is Bullock?
Okay, so I'm Traevon Taylor, the lead developer at Ninja Five. We're a team. Well, now we're a team of six people. He's welcome a sixth member, Douglas, our musician. Shout out to Douglas. He creates awesome music, which you will hear soon in the trailer and in the gameplay. I feel as though it's the type of music where you just pause the game just to hear the music. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, we're building Buluk Mayan Warfare. It's an Aztec Mayan themed video game where you use magic and a sword against rival tribes, and you're going to repel an invasion. I'm not sure if who's invading is obvious. I can state who's invading, or you guys can wait until the game comes out or the trailer, and you'll see who is invading. You want me to say who's invading?
Up to you.
Uh, well, the guys who destroyed the Aztec Empire, they're invading your land now. So
Mm.
you're gonna deal with a civil war, and then after you win the civil war, you're like, oh no, we got these guys. They just destroyed the Aztecs. We gotta defeat them now. But we just won a civil war. That's pretty much the premise. You use sword and magic against these tribes,
Mm-hmm.
rival tribes.
And I know that you've been working on this one for quite some time, and it's something that we've spoken to a lot of developers about when we start seeing projects get, very long in terms of their development. Like, what has been, I guess, like any recent or major challenges that have like come up that you've had to figure out as a developer?
The major challenges. I would say so. If you look at the game, it looks completely different from when I first revealed it many years ago.
Hmm.
So is iterating and improving it to be up to standard, as a commercial product. Let's see, I'm trying to think, where do I start? So the combat is completely different. Just overhauling it, paying more attention to what people like in a video game, and we added that to our game to make it, like I said, more suited for a commercial product. Another thing is, as we're getting closer to the end of development, things start popping up that you didn't notice before when you're just focusing on creating. Because now we're fine tuning and polishing, so you start noticing more bugs that were there before you didn't really pay attention to because you're too busy creating. And since this is the build that's going to go up online, like we're thinking to ourselves, hey, these bugs need to be dealt with. Any issues that we were putting up with, they have to be fixed before the final product is uploaded online. Like they have to be fixed. So just going in there and like what they say, a fine. I don't even know the word I'm looking for. You're checking every nook and cranny of the game to make sure everything is in place. I would say that's the biggest challenge so far at this point in time. I mean, there's obviously more challenges which I can go into, but I'm talking about right now. Those are the challenges.
And I remember when we last spoke, I think this would be at least like 2 or 3 years. I know it's been a while. Whew.
3 years ago.
Damn. Doesn't feel like it though. That's the strange thing about these conversations. I remember you were talking a lot about the action. And I think you specifically were talking about how, like, in earlier versions of Bullock, it felt very clunky to use. That it didn't, like, feel as responsive as you wanted. And I think that's what led to, like that 2 to 3 hour long conversation, because we just got on the topic of action game design, kind of action fundamentals. And with the time that you spent on the game and with your team, has anything else like changed in terms of your thoughts on action design?
Yes, I would start with. So Ghost of Tsushima came out, and when I played it, I realized there was a big gap in between what we were trying to do and where we were currently at. I mean, we were going in the right direction, but I feel as though Ghost of Tsushima really just bridged the gap. We didn't add any stealth elements, but we realized we're missing counter. We used to have the counter mechanics in the game, like when we first built it, but it was too clunky at the time, so we removed it. I don't know what happened this time, but we added counter, and it flows perfectly. We added the parry system, so you can counter and parry attacks. Uh, we have made the controls to me feel much more responsive than before. The dodging feels more responsive as well. There's a better flow to the combat. You can lock onto enemies, and there's kind of an auto lock as well. So when you swing your weapon, it does lock on automatically towards the nearest enemy. But it works even better if you use the lock on feature. The spells too. If an enemy's in proximity, if you launch a fireball, the fireball will aim at the enemy that's nearby. So over this period of time since we last spoke, I paid more attention to other games that did really well, that had really good combat, to ensure that ours wasn't just bland.
I guess.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So with the game, are you able to do any kind of like animation canceling? You know, like you're about to swing the sword. If you hit the dodge button, your character will just like dodge instead of follow through the attack. Like, how does it flow? Like from what you've played and tested.
Oh, so you can move cancel if that's what you're asking me.
Yeah.
Like if you're in the middle of a combo, you can just roll out the way. You can stop the combo. But last I checked, if you're already for our sword on the light attacks, there's about 6 attacks in the sequence. I believe once you go past 3, the third hit is kind of hard to cancel the combo. I'll have to try that out again. Lately, it's been hard to get to the 6th strike because we know we added in where if the enemy is close to dying, they will auto block you, or no, they will auto parry you. It's to stop you from spamming.
Mm-hmm.
So it is rather difficult unless the enemy has high health. It's rather difficult now to get to the sixth combo, which is not a bad thing. But like I said, you can also roll out into an attack. Like I said before, you can roll,
Mm-hmm.
you can attack and then roll. You can also, when you block, you will auto block to the nearest to the attacker. So the enemy in front will attack you, and then there's an enemy that will try to flank you, and then the rest of the enemies are like in a circle
Mm-hmm.
to make it feel kind of like a movie, but you're not gonna feel overwhelmed. So you're only getting attacked by two enemies at once. So let's
Mm-hmm.
say if you're swinging at one enemy in front of you, the enemy behind you will try to attack. So you see that, you can press the block button and you'll automatically turn to block that incoming hit.
Mm-hmm.
Spells, they flow a lot better within the combat, because I remember in the past, you try to use a spell while you're in melee, it wasn't that responsive. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's much more responsive.
Mm-hmm. And I remember, I think when we first chatted about Bullet, you had, I think, a focus, or you had kind of like the quasi strategy system where you could like move around the map. You could pick, like, I think, where you wanted to go, which would then determine, what resources and rewards. How is that system like? Is that still in the game? Have things changed along those lines?
They're still there. So when instead of getting accumulating resources per turn on the campaign map, you just get them from within the level. So there is no reoccurring resource that you're gaining. So you find them within the level. It kind of encourages exploration. So there's other parts of the map where it's off the pathway. So if you go and you explore, you can find these resources. So you take these resources and you construct your weapons and armor and use them for spells. Now, marketing wise, we're not. There's not that much emphasis on that.
Mm-hmm.
The signal thing. The signal didn't go bad or anything. It was just me thinking. So marketing wise, there's not really that much emphasis on the campaign map and the strategy element. We want to focus more on the action side of it, just because of the audience that we're targeting. You start to realize, oh, that's why you don't really see that many games. Maybe Mountain Blade, I'm not entirely sure, but there's a reason why they don't really market games as, oh, this is strategy and action.
Mm-hmm.
It just has to do with the target audience. But those strategy elements are there, but we lean more towards the action. So you'll still move your warrior around the map to attack cities, but we've also sped up the amount of time it takes to get to a city,
Mm-hmm.
just so it doesn't mess up the flow. Because this is not a strategy game.
Mm-hmm.
We simulated an open world because there's enemy pieces that will intercept you on your way to a city, and it opens up a smaller, like an arena almost. So let's say you're on the road and you get attacked. It opens up combat sequence where you could be in a forest or something off the side of the road. I'm excited about that because that's the closest thing we have to an open world.
Mm-hmm. And with kind of like the development of the game, I honestly, for a lot of people watching this, I know I have a lot of students and enthusiasts. What has been, I think, this is what I always like to ask developers when like projects start to get like very long, like we're talking about like multiple years. Like, what has been, I think, like the biggest challenge in terms of getting the game to the point where it is ready? Because you mentioned earlier about how you're kind of getting ready, or you're approaching either a. Are you going to do an early access release, or are you just going to go straight to 1.0?
Go straight to 1.0. We'll obviously do the beta, but no early access. I'm beginning to, just from observations, that early access works better for things with procedural,
Mm-hmm.
like a roguelike
Yeah.
or a multiplayer. However, we do need and plan on getting as much feedback as possible to improve the game, which we've been doing in secrecy for the past few years. We've been
Mm-hmm.
sending out demos to get feedback. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I would ask specific questions like,
Mm-hmm.
do you feel overwhelmed by enemies? Do you feel as though this attack right here, which is meant to be a balanced type of weapon, does it feel like it is too slow? Do you feel like you don't have enough blood to start off with? I'm
Mm-hmm.
asking very specific questions because it's the player experience. I need to know
Mm-hmm.
how the. I don't want to just release 1.0 and then we just get reviewed bombed with this
Mm-hmm.
experience sucks. That's why I made the traversal time between cities shorter because it is not a strategy game. The worst thing is someone comes in wanting to play a game like I'm looking at my games. I'm trying to give you an example. You come in ready to play God of War, and it's
Mm-hmm.
flowing like a Total War game.
Mm-hmm.
That um, that's what I have so far. Like, as could you answer that question again, please? Because I feel like I went off on a tangent. I want to make sure I'm properly answering your question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no problem. What I was asking is, what has been like the biggest hurdle or the biggest challenge of getting the game to 1.0?
Oh yes, yes, improving it because you get to a point where you think this would be perfect for market, and then you play it some more, and you're like, no, this might not work. Because there was times where I thought to myself, it's like a running joke, like every year, like, oh yeah, this is the year, guys, we're gonna release it. We're gonna release it next month, and then doing some reassessing, you're like, no, this is not ready. So that's why I'm glad Ghost of Tsushima came out because it was just very eye opening as to like the direction. Like, oh, this is it. Gave me a concrete waypoint as to where we're trying to go with the game. Like we're trying to meet that standard. Even though
Mm-hmm.
we're an indie game, you want to try to meet the standard, of a triple A game. Just because indie doesn't mean it's lack of quality. We don't
Mm-hmm.
want people to say, "Oh, that's an indie." Like we don't want that to be the crutch. So if a triple A game has excellent combat, we need excellent combat. So it's really just improving, like overhauling, increasing the graphics, making the combat better. Because like you said before, yes, the combat was clunky. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that much fun. Now it's really, really fun. Really
Mm-hmm.
fun. So I would say that would be the major hurdle, just getting it up to par for a commercial release.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's something that, again, we've been talking about a lot here in terms of what people expect out of indie games these days. I mean, right now, for those of you watching this, we just saw the Game Awards of 2021. And there were very few indie games actually posted this year. I mean, it's a difference from when we saw, Disco Elysium and Celeste winning in the previous 2 years. And people, I think they've gotten used to the point that indie games are here to stay, and more importantly, indie games are meant to be quality. That the days where you could release a 2.99, 99 cent indie game and get any level of support out of that, I think has gotten harder and harder. And in a lot of ways, it's good that it's pushing developers to kind of go big with their games. But on the other hand, of course, if your game fails, you know, you just put even more money and time into something that, is just not resonating with people.
Don't put your life savings into a video game. You just put in what you're willing to lose within scope. Because I've heard stories. I don't know where I've heard this at. I don't know if there was articles or postmortems. No, you've seen them where they say they took out that loan, that second
Mm-hmm.
loan from their house, or however that works on this game. This is their last hope. And I'm thinking to myself, why would you bet your financial future? They're like, there's risks, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to remove it's. You don't want to be stranded at sea.
Yeah.
Well, I'll play like that. But at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, increasing the quality, making sure the quality is up to par, that's not asking too much
Mm-hmm.
because it is 2021. This isn't like you said, like back in the day where you could just release something for 2.99, and because it's an indie, they maybe like a bubble or something. Something just happened where people now they have this expectation. Well, there's nothing wrong because these are consumers. We're dealing with consumers here. That's what I feel as though people forget that we're dealing with consumers. So the product must be up to par.
Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, when you say in the old days, that's basically 2011 or 2010. It's only 10 years. Like, the old days are only 10 years now.
Yes, That's when we had Unreal. See, what Unreal were we on? We were like Unreal 3. UDK was around the corner. Like, you think about all the game engines that came out, all the graphical improvements. See, no, we didn't even have the PS4 and Xbox One at that time. We were still heading towards the late phase of the 360 and PS3 days. This isn't the days of that movie. It was Indie Game? That's the
Yeah.
name of that movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the days of that anymore. Those were good games. Don't get me wrong, or they look good to me. I've never played them, but they look good to me.
Mm-hmm. And now I
And now
feel.
people are. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say now I feel even older about playing Nintendo games and Sega Genesis with my steam powered TV and horse and buggy and living in a log cabin back in the ye old era.
Oh yes, yeah. Like, the video games have really improved since those times, since the PlayStation 1 days. They've really they've leaped. Like, they've leaped. I don't know how else to say it. It's like they look like they're 100 years in the future or something. And I'm just happy to be a part of that progression and to see it. I remember going to college. Video games looked different back then, and how they look now. Like, I love it. I just love how they progress.
Mm-hmm. And yet, getting your game to like 1.0 standards, that's always the difficulty, I think, for a lot of developers because there is that tendency to just say, I'm just going to keep adding. I'm just going to keep putting stuff in. Somebody did this really cool thing. I'm going to put that into my game. Then we add another 6 months, and then another 6 months, and then we get into like the Duke Nukem Forever era of a 10+ year development. And the truth of the matter is that it's very hard when we see games get like 5+ years in development. I'm talking full time 5+ years. It's very unlikely for that game to financially succeed. Even if it turns out to be an amazing game, you're just not going to be able to recoup that cost. And you said earlier, developers taking out second mortgages and things like that. Like, everyone saw the success of Cuphead, and they heard the stories of how Studio MDHR took out a second mortgage, and they did double down, and it worked for them. But I always say that it could just as easily have gone the opposite way. That it could have failed. And then you're left without a house.
Yes, they have. Trying to think, where do I even start? Because you have to assess. Well, one way to assess, you see what the market says. 'Cause I don't think the market's gonna lie. The market is like the buying habits and the willpower of the consumer. So evidently, Cuphead had this appeal to the market. So maybe I didn't know about Cuphead until it came out. I've never seen. I don't remember anything in regards to the development until maybe right before the game came out. I seen it was a random video on Facebook. Um, I'm thinking maybe they were. What did it say here? I never made. See, this happens every time. I forget that there's a chat right here, so I'm just looking at the chat. Okay, I'm assuming they showed off a prototype. They showed off some part of the game to their target audience, and they got the response they wanted, and that told them, "Hey, it's time to double down." That's what I'm thinking, or they just went for it. But if you can show off the prototype to your target audience, that will tell you if you're going the right direction or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't. But evidently, it worked out for them. I don't know how many copies they sold, but actually, let's Google it right now. How many copies have they sold?
And while you're doing
Copies
that,
sold.
like, if like the earlier into a game's development that it resonates with people, the far better chance it has of succeeding. Like, if you can get somebody to go, "Oh my god, I love this game," and you have no art assets done, if it's just literally your first or second prototype, that doesn't guarantee success, but it certainly gives you a leg up. Because I've seen developers who are, halfway, 3/4 of the way done, and they're still trying to figure out okay, what is my game like? Who's my market? What else is this game good or bad? And so much of I think the success of game design is having good game dev skills and being able to manage people and being able to get that feedback. Because you've said, of course, that you've been keeping Bullock very much under wraps, doing private play testings and sending out to people. Because the one of the biggest lessons, I think this is something for every indie developer watching us live record right now, is that you really only have one shot when you announce or when you reveal that game. If that first reveal is not amazing, if it's not resonating with people, you're just not going to be able to recoup that or not be able to recover in a lot of those cases. Because you need that initial wow factor to really start your marketing.
You're talking about the first impression. So if
Yeah.
they have a bad impression of the game initially, then they're gonna tune it out.
Mm-hmm.
That's what. Okay, no, that makes sense. Luckily for indies, I'll tell you something right now. As an indie developer who's first starting out, embrace the fact that during your development, that the world doesn't know about you. So I'm gonna explain something to. We went over this before on the last cast. How after the Kickstarter, I realized the world doesn't know about the game, and that's actually a good thing. So, hey Traevon, hey Josh, oh hey Bob. It's just funny how I randomly noticed the chat to the side.
Hello, Bob.
Indie developers, when people first start off with their creative endeavors, I think they overestimate how many eyes are actually on their project because they look right. Like the social media here will mess you up. You start getting views. You start getting 1,000 views on a video, and you think like, "Oh, the world knows." No, the world doesn't know who you are. Embrace the fact that less than less than 100,000 people know you exist. Your game exists. That's a good thing. So then now you can, yes, maybe 10,000 people know who you are, but you can get feedback and properly improve the game before the mass market knows about it. So that way you don't ruin that first impression. So maybe you have messed up the first impression with 20,000 people, but there's a whole bunch of people on this planet, and you barely scratch the surface. So you can keep improving the game, and once it appeals to the small scale of people, then now you're ready to let the whole world know. And the reason why I know this is because I checked my stats when I did the Kickstarter. I looked at the Facebook the trailer, and it was like I think a reach of only I think maybe 29,000 people, and
Mm-hmm.
that was eye opening to me. That said, whoa, like I haven't even scratched the surface yet. So embrace that, and
Mm-hmm.
you all right though. I can see the first impression it can mess it up because they have like a bad impression. They'll just tune you out.
Mm-hmm.
And you've seen it before with like a multiplayer game could launch, and there's so many bugs that the players just go away, and now they're not willing to give it another chance. So there's
Mm-hmm.
just different aspects to it besides this, like the visuals and stuff. Like the experience. The experience is bad on a mass scale. Yeah, you kind of messed up there.
Yep. And with Bullock again, like I remember, I think when our very first conversation, that was either before or I think right after your first Kickstarter for the game, and
First conversation was in 2016.
whew, I'm glad somebody's keeping track of these things because I have my mind is gone in terms of days and dates and such. And with Bullock in particular, like keeping it quiet for so long, I guess what was kind of like your main decision? Because again, like going to Kickstarter, that is very much a public thing. I remember you started the YouTube channel for Bullock, and there was a time that you were being far more active in terms of promoting it. What was the decision to like once again go back dark, and then waiting for like I'm assuming like this is like one of your ways of revealing it again, but what was the decision to kind of like hide the game or work on more privately as opposed to more of a public or transparent development?
All right, Josh. So first, I'll say this: we got a trailer that's gonna drop very, very soon, and it's gonna. I see. I'm not gonna hype it up. No, I'm not gonna. We didn't see anything yet in regards to Bullock. I'll tell you that. Like those screenshots I sent you. No, I sent you video clips, right?
Yeah.
Um, the world has no one seen. The only people that have seen that. Only way you have seen that if you played a demo in the last two. I only sent the demo out to like 2 or 3 people because they were helping me gather footage. Or if you are a family member who I show the footage off to, or if you're a teammate. So no one really knows. Then it's you. So it's like I think I count on my hand the amount of people who see what's about to happen. But okay, to answer your question, you asked me why I went dark, right? Why? Oh, yes, okay. So the Kickstarter, remember I said I overestimated the amount of people that knew about the game. Like let's say I'm in a group, right, with PC gamers in another country. And the impressions, there's so many, it's like 400 likes on the video. I don't know, like maybe 10,000 views. I don't remember. But it was like over 400 likes, And so the Kickstarter fails, and I was just amazed. I'm like, wait, I've been doing all this talking. Why don't I just focus the energy on improve? No, serious, improve the game. Let's improve the game. Let's not talk right now. Let's just improve the game. Because, let's see, 2016, so that was 2 years of just heavy promoting, but not realizing that wasn't promotion. You know what I'm saying? I could post on a Facebook, right? No, Instagram. I could post on Instagram. I'm using all these hashtags, getting all these likes, but that didn't even scratch the surface. That was nothing. So I said, let's just focus right now on improving. Let's improve the product so it can be very appealing. So now when it's time to scale up, it can have that good first impression. So miraculously, it was a good thing that no one knew about the game. Why is my phone? Sorry, this is a new phone. It says turn on my. No, we're not doing that. Okay. So miraculously, less than 30,000 people knew about the game at the time because there's a whole bunch of world. So, like I said before, I wanted to use that time to improve the appeal of the game and really nail what like the target audience, why people like the game, what games were similar. Because you noticed one when I say this game is like this. Oh, one was like Golden Axe. I've never played a Golden Axe before. Somebody just randomly said that on Reddit, and I said, hey, you know what? Let's run with that. I was always asking people, what is this game similar to? But then Ghost of Tsushima finally came out, and I started thinking. Or even after the Kickstarter, I was like, oh, okay, we got God of War, then God of War 4, stuff like that. So you just, because a lot of developers, I feel as though they can spend more time on developing. You know how you talk about, oh, we didn't spend enough time marketing. Well, yeah, you didn't spend enough time marketing, but did you make the game appealing though? So I spent the team spent all energy making the game very appealing visually and the experience appealing. So then now we're at the time now where we can scale up. We can really focus on that energy I put in before and, learning the tools and how to properly market and stuff. Now we can really scale up. That's my answer as to why we went dark. And plus, if you compare what it looked like before and now, I needed to stop posting so the internet can slowly like die down on the like. Let's see how I explain this. What would be? I want to contribute more to the image that was there because I want to improve it. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
A little bit.
Okay, a little bit. Dang.
Like you
So they
wanted to
try to
make
figure out
sure.
better.
Oh, I was gonna say like you want to make sure that people see the newer stuff as opposed to just keep on bringing up like the first footage or the first content of it.
Yes, that's one way to put it. We were because I realized development wise, we need a complete overhaul. Like the basics were there, but we need to completely we need to overhaul the game to get it to a state where it was commercial ready. So all that energy. Oh, this is simple. You got time, right? Instead of me using that time to post everywhere, let's use that time to develop the game and make it better. How about that? Like you have to choose, right? Finite time and resources. We're gonna devote that to making the product look better first. let's make the product look better. Because we're over here trying to market it, and it's not good. It's not going to do anything. So when they talk about we didn't market it, yeah, it doesn't matter. The product's not good. Your marketing is not going to really do anything. So let's put the energy into making the product good first. Then we can properly market it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for I'm noticing some of the inconsistencies of mine in terms of the stream. I don't know, it could be the weather around here, or could be everyone's internet could be acting up. But we'll see how things. If it gets really bad, let me know, and I'll check to see what's going on over here. Yeah. So with like again, like knowing when to show the game to people, that is one like I think the hardest challenges. I think about developers like Jake Burgett and Cliff Harris, who've been in the industry for, who I think combined have like 20 to 30 years in terms of releasing and putting out smaller games. And it is tough that in terms of how much you want to put out and when. So I guess to kind of lead in or to go from that point, if you're starting to put out trailers and starting to put out the word out, do you have an estimate of when Bullock will actually be released?
I'm gonna make sure I understood your question correctly. You said that after the trailer,
Yeah, like now that you're starting to like do like more marketing, you're starting to put the word out more. Like, how soon, or do you have an estimated date for when you're going to release the game?
wait. So first of all, I don't even think so. This effort. So what I'm doing right now, just in terms of me, uh, no, actually, so I, I want to aim for January. That's next month. That's what I want to aim for is January.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, I haven't begun to market the game.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm getting right now, like me posting, that's not even there's any response I'm getting. That's not even the surface of what it's gonna really be.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I can explain that in a better way if I need to. If someone's let me look at the chat because if anyone's confused, I will explain that in a whole different way.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things about when it comes to the marketing push to the game release is that you really do need to give your game time to breathe in terms of marketing. That like I've seen developers who will wait, 6 months to a year from when they do the marketing to when the game comes out. Because I think one of the biggest things is that you need to, do enough marketing before the game comes out because you need that initial push. And it's something I think we're seeing more and more games suffer with. That if you release your game and in 3 months of release you get maybe 20 reviews, 30 reviews, you're in big trouble. You What you want is you want that first day or ideally that first week to be as monumental of a push as you can, especially if you're releasing it on Steam or any major digital platform. Because this is something that Shark and I talk about when we do our store page reviews, that if your game does well, Steam is going to market it more. And if Steam markets it more, it means more people are going to have a chance at seeing it. And it's very much, I think, a lot of cases for, feast or famine. That either it does really well and keeps growing, or it just drops like a lead balloon. And Foreign is mentioning Among Us. And Among Us is definitely the exception to this rule. That nobody could have predicted that the game blew up 2 years after it was released. But like we said earlier, in terms of mitigating the risks, that you don't want to release a game and your whole business model is we're going to hope in the next 5 years that somebody plays it and it blows up. Because no,
That's a bad move. Don't do that.
Yes.
I'm glad you said that because a lot people don't really like the exception. Yeah, that's an exception right there.
Mm-hmm.
I think they blew up because somebody streamed it, right? Like some streamer got a hold of it. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it blew up. I believe I want to say in from a Brazilian streamer or a Brazilian YouTuber. If anyone can uh, uh, make sure of that, let me know. But yeah, like it was dead here. Like it was, maybe like less than like 50 reviews or like only like a few hundred purchases, and that was it for 2 years. And it blew up, and I feel that again, and this is something that I'm sure I said this on one of our previous casts. 9999 TY says soda poppin', which I am too old to know who that is on YouTube, but or Twitch.
I'm going to find out who that is.
But it's something that I've said like many times. I'm sure this is probably one of our casts that a lot of developers I think still struggle with understanding why a game succeeds and fails. And if you're not constantly analyzing the market and not seeing, why these games are doing well or they're not, you're just akin to throwing, spaghetti on the wall and hoping that it, turns into a Picasso at the end.
I think that's an accurate. What you just said is an accurate description of doing stuff like that. I will say this: that when we release the trailer, if we don't get enough of a response that's ideal, then of course we're gonna push the game back. Something just popped up on my screen. Of course we're gonna push the date back. We're not a AAA studio. Well, no, AAA studios do it all the time. They always push the dates back. Hey, we'll push it back by like a year. Cyberpunk. Well, no, let's not talk about Cyberpunk. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna go there. He said, "What is Buluk Mayan Warfare?" It's funny you should ask. I will get to that later. I'll have to tell you, man. You Sword and Magic. It's an Aztec Mayan thing video game where you Sword and Magic, and you fight rival tribes and you repel a foreign invasion using magic and a sword, mainly fire magic. Like I'm saying, release the trailer. We don't get enough of a response that we want, then yeah, we're gonna push the release date back. In order to get enough fans. I like what you said though, because this is something I learned. I tuned in on your cast. This time you were talking to Shark, and I think I asked a question, and it was very enlightening in regards to like their day one sales. You get enough because all platforms do it. You get enough sales within the first day to a week, the platform they will run it for you because now their algorithm says it's like Facebook. Like Facebook, if you post something that does really well, Facebook's gonna keep showing it off. So it becomes like a wildfire. Like you want to get as many. Yeah, you want to get as many day one sales as possible. I do ask Among Us, so they're dead for the past 2 years. What were they doing to market their game? Like, I would like to know what was it that they were doing? Because look, so check this out. This guy, right? I'm not gonna say any names, but there's some games out there where a big reviewer they show it off, but the sales though, it didn't do well. Examples. I'm not gonna say any names. I'm not gonna do that. But I'm pretty sure you know. So we know just because you put a game in front of a big reviewer doesn't mean it's going to go anywhere, even though this big reviewer is always getting views. So I'm suspecting now. This Soda Pop, he got a hold of it. Whoever this audience he showed it to, that audience right there. That was a hit among them, and that's how. Oh, I didn't mean that now. Among Us, among them. I didn't. That wasn't on purpose now. So whoever he showed it to, his audience must have been the core audience of the game. So, like I said, I didn't know about Among Us. I don't know what they did in the past 2 years. Maybe they weren't. Thanks, man. Hey, foreign user, man, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate. I just read your comment, man. Maybe they weren't showing it to the right audience. They didn't know who their target audience was. I'll say, like with me, after the Kickstarter, I really did some research as to who was my target audience. I mean, I was on the right track, but I needed more, though. I needed more. I needed to know because it was a bigger market than what I thought. So I needed to know how to properly market to them. And your audiences can be different people. You might have an audience over here, they like the game for one reason. You got another audience over here, they like the game for different reasons. So figuring out how to market to all of them, like separately and together. So I'm curious as to how were they promoting the game? Because if the game was dead for the game looked the same, right, for the past 2 years.
I think for the most part, like there was just again, it's almost like near impossible to check now, but like when we first looked at it, like there weren't really any updates to it. Like they were planning, I know they were working on a sequel to the game, and then of course after the first game blew up, they canceled that, and they kind of or I believe they're now integrating all the things they were planning into that first game.
So if visually, because like I said before, we've seen it where a big streamer gets a hold of something and it doesn't go anywhere. And if
Mm-hmm.
the game looked the same, then it must be they were showing it to their target audience. Or they were showing it to enough of their target audience and they were over I'll use me example. Overestimating the reach.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said before, when I see my stats on the trailer, 29,000 people reached. Only 29,000 people. Like, wait, that's less than 100,000 people. We got all these people on this planet. No one knows about the game. Um, but yeah, ideally, if you can market 6 months in advance, that'd be awesome. Just make sure you're marketing in a constructive manner. You're not just, I'll use me an example, not
Mm-hmm.
just posting on Instagram with these hashtags because who's going to see it? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how are you, discoverability? How are people discovering your product? That's what it is. Because you're posting, so people know about you. They're gonna keep seeing it. That's not a problem. You're engaging your current fans. But discoverability, though, I think a
Mm-hmm.
viral linear story based game versus a viral multiplayer game. People essentially playing through the streamer's eyes from multiplayer games. They want to get in on the trend to play with the streamer.
Yeah, and to
Okay, this person that makes sense.
yeah.
Like if that streamer has that personality and they want in with the stream, that's a good combo.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like the difference, like of our yeah, and like to what 999 just said there, that like with a single player driven game, and this one that we see with a lot of the kind of the YouTuber bait like horror games, that it's more about watching someone like a Markiplier or what was it, a Manly Badass Hero, and there's a whole lot of YouTubers who play horror games. It's about watching them react to the game as opposed to you playing it. So, in this respect, yes, you can have 500,000, 1,000,000, 2,000,000 eyes looking at this game. That doesn't mean they're all going to just immediately run and buy that title. With multiplayer driven games, there is that greater push, and it's one of the reasons why multiplayer has become one of the more popular genres to develop for. Because now you can play with that person, you can play with your friends, you can, every multiplayer experience is different. Like I said, like I'm trying to play like Dead by Daylight in between the manual typing of my book, and a lot of that
31 days.
yeah, and a lot of that is about being around other people, about that interaction. And I think there is a greater chance for a multiplayer game to snowball than a single player driven game because of that.
I would say so. It's just like people are going nuts over the. You see how they released the multiplayer for Halo first before they released the
Mm-hmm.
campaign. You broke the internet. I was
Yeah.
just thinking, like the multiplayer. If you create a great multiplayer experience,
Mm-hmm.
viral games has to have a way for a player to have a unique experience compared to others like roguelites. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I was saying with the early access. Why do an early access on a single player game? Because on a single player game, this is all I want to know. Like you want to talk
Yep.
about balancing. Like, is this doing too much damage? Like, I can ask maybe less than 100 people, less than 100 people when it comes to this experience. Now, obviously, when I scale up with a beta and I expose it to the whole world, I'm going to look at their feedback. But you really want to do your early access for your multiplayer, for your roguelites, like the procedural stuff, because the
Mm-hmm.
experience is very varied. So having all those people giving that feedback, I mean, feedback is good, for everyone, but in that situation, like you particularly, like you really need to do, yeah, early access is smart.
Yeah.
for that situation.
And I would also add to that if you that with early access today, people still demand a higher level of quality. It's not I'm going to take my very first prototype, put it on early access, give me $24.99. And the thing that I've seen a lot lately is that if a game launches in early access and there are issues in it, I will most likely still see those issues when that game was released at 1.0. Like, if there are
Well,
systemic issues with this game, like if the gameplay is not working at the most basic level, that's not something that can just be fixed through simple playtesting. That's going to require an almost rebuild of that design. And I think developers still fall into that trap of waiting far too long to make use of player feedback. Like, I've seen games release at 1.0 that I will play within 20 minutes, sometimes even within 5 minutes. I spot major UI UX issues, and people in the forums are saying the exact same thing as me. And the developers say either, "Oh, we never thought that was a problem," or "Oh yeah, we'll get that fixed in like a month or two of patches." And I'm just sitting there going, "No, like if it was an issue that bad, it should have been fixed before you put it on 1.0." And there's definitely that again, as we said, that you really only get one shot at getting somebody's attention because there are way too many games out these days. The last indie game festival, I played about I think it was like 75 or 90 games in 1 week, and I can't even remember most of those games that I played, which is why I use the Steam wish list. But again, I don't need to, the game can't hold me hostage to play it anymore. If I don't like a game, I have 89 other games from that list I can just immediately go to.
right. That's right. Let's say you use me as an example, release the trailer and the beta, start getting all this feedback, then yeah, of course we're gonna push the release date back. That's to understand. If you're receiving feedback from, like I said, the buyers, like they're the willpower, or the market is like the willpower of the buyers, right? If they're
Mm-hmm.
giving you this feedback, then you should now there's certain things because you'll receive some feedback and it will fundamentally change the game, and it might not even be a positive change because people just give feedback. But there's feedback where you start seeing the same thing and it's messing up the experience. They're as sharp as you can get once I come by your house next week over my website. Like, the experience. You want to make sure that if they're telling you that there's something negative about the experience, then you should fix that. We're not AAA studios. We can just push the release date back. Like, I changed the description of the game. And I'm not a AAA studio, so I can just push back the release date. We're supposed to release in 2016. We swore, well, I swore that the game was going to release in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
No, then I released 2019. Oh, we're releasing 2020. I'll tell you this though, we're definitely releasing 2022. After what I've seen, no, 2022. Like I told someone, the only way
Mm-hmm.
that this game cannot get see, I'm not even gonna go there. It'd have to be a cataclysm, like an asteroid. I have to see. I'm not gonna go there. But my point is this though: if they're telling you something is wrong, go ahead, fix it. Just push the
Mm-hmm.
release date back. Now, let's say there's something really, really wrong, and it would really just mess up the game entirely. See, then that's bad, and that should have been addressed in your early phases. Because
Mm-hmm.
I will say this: throughout the entire development of Bullock, I've constantly been giving out demos. You have like at least 200 like players that people play this game at least. Now that's small scale in the grand scheme of things, but that's a whole lot of feedback. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure you can get good feedback from 200 people because I get good feedback from 5 people. So what I'm saying is you should be testing along the way. I didn't say promote the game along the way to the masses, but you should be getting feedback along the way in your development. Because you don't want to get
Mm-hmm.
to 1.0 talking about a patch. No patches. My goal is, if we're doing a patch, it's because it's an alternate main menu or something. If it's a patch, it's because we're giving you more content.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there should be no reason why there's a patch after 1.0 and it's to fix a major issue. No, because I'm gathering feedback along the way. That's my
Mm-hmm.
thoughts and opinions about it.
Yep. And it's unfortunate that for a lot of the games that I play that have been like really fascinating, that in some cases they'll release a 1.0 and it just doesn't do it. Like, it doesn't resonate with anyone. It's not exciting to people. There was a game that I played, a Hell Sign, that I really loved. There was a ton of potential with that game, but it just never went anywhere. And that's kind of like that risk when you start doing early access and kind of more public development. That when all eyes are on your game, it means everyone is going to be looking for any single thing to kind of throw doubt in that game. I mean, if you visit any early access forum for a game, someone will always say, "Is this game dead? Has the developer run off? Is it even in development anymore?"
I see that a lot. Like whenever I look at the early access games. What was the name of the game you just mentioned?
Hell Sign, HELLSIGN.
SITN.
GN, like sign, like a stop sign.
Oh, hell sign.
Mm-hmm.
So this, how are you as a developer? No, okay. Let me reword this question. I would say this: you should be getting feedback along the way. Like you
Mm-hmm.
should, you can find people who are just outside your circle of friends. I'm talking about outside your circle of friends. You can find people who can leave feedback, who will play the game. But it is possible. We have IndieDB. Like IndieDB, the newest. They push the newest thing. That's why you see someone post something for the first time. It's like it's number 20 on the list or something. What I'm saying is,
Mm-hmm.
that's the. I can see. Yeah, you want to be quiet. Like, don't confuse promoting the game with testing, QA, getting feedback.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get this feedback. You want to, because it's the experience. I always say I don't want to get killed on my reviews. I don't want to get killed. So let's
Mm-hmm.
make sure this experience is good before we launch it. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's games where they're not for sale anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They're not for sale anymore. And I ask myself, I'm like, I wonder why. Maybe it was the experience. I go look at the reviews. I'm like, oh, and we're talking like single player games. Like, ooh, you guys should have got that fixed. And
Mm-hmm.
it amazes me that these people they can get like all these eyes on their game, but they didn't get the appropriate feedback. They just, like you get 100,000
Mm-hmm.
views. That part amazes me. You get 100,000 views on your trailer, but not enough feedback to improve
Mm-hmm.
the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to you implement that feedback. If they're telling you something, if other people telling you something is wrong and it's the same thing, you want to let's fix the core experience. Test it out along the way. Don't rely on the patch to fix the game after people spent their money after it's been released. Kind of messes. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think getting back to Bullock, like with like the feedback that you've gotten for it, I guess what has been trying to think how to phrase this. Like, what has been like the strongest like opinions of people who play? Like, what have been the things that somebody said this and you just rushed out and said, we need to put this in the game. We need to change this. What has been like kind of like the overall attitude of the playtesters?
So this lately the feedback I've been getting has been kind of it's. I'm trying to think how to word this. The positivity I say to myself, do I need to tell like different people the game? Because I need you to tell me what's wrong with this thing. Because I think what was happening was we got to the point where we just start fixing it. Like I would keep playtesting a level over and over again. I keep playtesting it because you know why? Because I'm constantly comparing it to Tashima, like the combat. I'm like, this isn't totally between. Oh, he's laughing. What are you laughing about? Okay. I'm constantly comparing. There's the time where I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima. Like, what's wrong with combat? There's no stealth elements. We're not no stealth. But I'm comparing with a AAA product, iteration by iteration. I'm like, no, this doesn't feel AAA. Like Tashima's combat. I'm just gonna throw it out there. It doesn't feel like Tashima's combat. It doesn't feel like God of War's combat. Right? God of War 4. So I go back. I'll keep playtesting. I keep playing the game. So I love those games. I play it, but I'm playing them now to see what is it I can get from there to improve Bullet. So I go back to Bullet. Okay, take notes. Okay, programmer. I have Sam. Sam is a wizard, by the way. That guy's a wizard. Say Sam. Well, hey man, we need this in the game. Okay, he has it. Playtest. Okay, what's different about what we just added versus what I see in this AAA product right here that did really, really well that people love? Okay, let's adjust this here. Hey man, we should adjust this. Like I'm gonna start talking developer jargon, but global variables. So global, where you don't have to go into the code to adjust it. You can just adjust it in editor rather than going into the script to adjust it. I'm adjusting numbers now because now I'm like, maybe it's the timing of the counter, the timing of the parry. Let me, me as a developer, the game designer, let me adjust. Well, he's the game designer too. I consider him a game designer. Yeah, he's a designer. The programmer. Let me adjust it. And if my adjustments aren't working, then I need to have a talk with him and see, hey, this is what's wrong. Can this be adjusted? You know what I'm saying? Constant, like this feedback, like constant. That's why I say, as an independent developer, indie, just because you're indie doesn't mean that the experience, like, doesn't mean the product. There's nothing wrong with having a visually appealing product and a product that plays like it's AAA. So I'm constantly cross-referencing with my examples. What I want the game to be like. I'm constantly cross-referencing. I feel like I kind of went off on a tangent. Could you ask that question again, please, so I can make sure I properly answered it?
Like, what has been like the overall feedback or reception from playtesters, and what have been like major elements that they've said that you've had to like work or adjust?
Okay, so now I got to go further back into the Rolodex. Further, actually, we can pull it up right now because they give me notes. It's just that it's been many months now since the last negative feedback versus what we're getting now. Let's see, I'm looking right now. Come back. Okay. Oh, those are my critiques. Okay, that's it. That's the other thing. Seemed like they had less critiques than I did because I'm comparing it to the AAA product. Okay, I'm going into my downloads right now. I'm gonna, cause I'm gonna read the feedback.
And while you're
Okay, gotta
doing
go.
that, it is always that important to make sure. I guess here's a quick question for you while you're looking at that. What kind of tool do you use to kind of like record or keep track of all like playtester feedback?
Microsoft Word and Google Docs. I'm not joking. I'm being very serious right now. That's literally what I do. Why complicate it? It'd be different if this was a multiplayer game and this is like Halo's multiplayer game. We got all these people working on the project. There's only about six of us. A simple Google Notes, like Microsoft Word and Google Docs, is perfect communication between two people who are they got their hands on the core experience. No need for Excel sheets. Now Excel sheets come into play now where you're comparing the stats. Let's say you have weapon damage, and this is where it's currently at. Okay, let's try this one right here. Um, I could have sworn. Is it? Let's see, I'm opening Microsoft. Use VS only. Okay, here's one. This one was from. Let me check the date. This was from July. July. Not to swear in July. I said we were launching in August. Okay, so the combat mechanic notes: the spear following up with a normal attack after the combo finish is what? Stop this. The character just freezes for a few seconds as you pull off another combo, which leaves you open. See, I don't understand. They're saying that. Okay, that one was kind of confusing. See, like the impact on the sounds, they need to be higher. You hit an enemy, the sound needs to be higher.
Mm-hmm.
Alternating move cancel right here. Here it was. So we got feedback for move cancel back in July 28th.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying we didn't have move cancel back in July? Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's why you always, even though I'm not promoting, I'm still interacting with the players. So alternate between heavy and light attack should have cancels, meaning if I start light attack, this is from Danny. Danny, I know, Danny, if you're watching, yes, we implemented your feedback, okay? Which he knows because he keeps playing the new demo, so he knows. So it should have move cancel in between the combos, which we went over earlier in the podcast. The other one was, so you change the role. If you use the keyboard, right? No.
Mm-hmm.
The controls. You played some games where the controls were kind of messed up and it messed up your experience.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we got feedback on our controls.
Yeah.
You used to roll in order to roll, you used to have to press the left trigger and the stick in order to commence a roll. What's that nonsense? You should press B. If you want to roll out the way, was it B? Or I think you just press B in order to roll out the way. That's so simple. That's super simple. The spells, we remapped the spells. See. Spells should be mapped to right bumper and right trigger, which yes, we did that. The blocking, your rolling used to share the same controls as your block, which doesn't make any sense. So blocking left trigger is only tied to your blocking. So if the feedback we were getting was on the experience of the game, how to make it flow better, the controller scheme, which we cross-referenced that with the state of the game and our AAA examples, because the people who are giving us feedback, they also play the same games that we're aspiring to be like. So that helps out a lot. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And like UI UX, I think are very important when it comes to these kinds of games, because like everything that you were just saying in terms of suggestions were UX issues that people were having frustration with how to control the character, and those are things that it doesn't matter what else you design on your game. If the basic controls are horrible to play, that's it. And I've quit games within 5 to 10 minutes because the controls frustrate me, or it doesn't feel right to play. And this is again why that kind of play testing and why that feedback is so important.
Yes, that is exactly why it's very important, and know what you're trying to do. So don't just create in a vacuum. This should be an example of what you're trying to achieve. Like I say, keep looking at that AAA example. You look at the AAA example, and it will help you get there as well. That's why some of these games that you see that got taken down from Steam, I think it was because of the experience. That's why they're getting so many bad reviews. So it could be bad controls. There's nothing like playing a game and you're saying to yourself, these controls suck. I'll say this, Witcher 3's controls is a vast improvement. I like Witcher 2. But I'm just saying, though, Witcher 3's controls is a vast improvement to Witcher 2, which I feel as though when they're developing Witcher 3, they said, we want to branch out to more action. We keep the RPG, because it's an RPG. People, the fans are RPG. But let's add let's get it closer to an action themed game as well, so we can appeal to even more people. It's like Mass Effect did that from Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2 to Mass Effect 3, and I heard Dead Space did that too. That's what I've heard. Never played Dead Space though. So you want to make sure, if your controls are faulty, it's gonna mess up the experience. And after we adjusted the controls, the combat that helped with the flow of combat.
Yep. And it's why you need that level of iteration, especially during the playtesting phase. That if your game is 1.0 or 90% done, and people are still saying your game controls horribly or I'm having trouble playing it, that is definitely a red flag. And unfortunately, we're joking about this, but I have played games at 1.0 that have had major issues. There's a game that I played. This was earlier this year. It's a kind of a isometric Dark Souls like. I forget the name of it, and we played the
This year?
demo. What was that?
This year?
Yeah, and I
Oh,
don't
okay.
remember the name of it. I think it had to do with. I think you were like the devil, or you were a demon, or something along those lines. It's hard to keep track sometimes. And what happened was we played the demo, and I just had really bad experience with it. It just didn't feel right. And between that demo, when they did 1.0, they actually fixed those issues. And it is a world of difference. But one of the points that I keep hammering home to developers is that when we talk about UI UX issues, they're really in the grand scheme of things not that hard to find because people are going to complain about within the first 10 minutes of playing. Like if it's horrible to swing a sword or dodge in an action game, you don't need 30 to 60 hours of gameplay to figure that out. You'll know that after the very first fight. And we can definitely see a difference between games that have had adequate playtesting and taken that feedback and games that haven't.
Yes, that's why I am constantly testing the game. I, like I say, I'm pointing out issues, and I'm asking players, hey, are you finding these same issues too? Like, there's some concerns I still have. That I'm like, hey, let's fix them. This is like in regards to the campaign map and stuff. So I identify them, and I tell our programmer, hey, like this should be fixed. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's why you should. Somebody once said it was very funny because my dad asked me. He was just asking about developers playtesting their game, and I gave him an example of a game where they said, "Yeah, we didn't playtest it enough." And it was a multiplayer game.
Mm.
Like, whoa! Like, you need to really. Like, I played through the games. I played like last night. Last night, I'll tell you this. I was trying to gather footage for a boss fight. Right. I sent
Mm-hmm.
the footage over to our musician to get it done. So I'm not using debug commands or anything. I'm playing through the game in order to get to the point where I can record footage of the boss fight. And I was hitting an issue. A issue. There was a bug. I don't even think I started to learn the difference between a bug and something that's just as simple as, oh, that's because that's not supposed to be there. Or you didn't put in the that's not supposed to be there. Versus, oh, that's
Mm-hmm.
an actual bug. Like you didn't set up things properly. So I keep playtesting to that part, hit the error. Okay, exit out the level. I'm going into the editor now, adjusting stuff, and I'm still hitting the same error. Only after showing about 2, 3 hours, I'm like, okay, I fixed it. I found out what the problem was. Okay, I found out the problem. Now imagine we released the game and that problem was there. You can't. We're talking about an issue where you can't progress throughout the level. You're stuck. You play games like that where it just stops. Like you can't
Mm-hmm.
get any further. Like it is a very. I remember in Fallen Order, you play Fallen Order,
No,
Jedi
I've seen footage
Jedi
of it
Knight.
though.
There's a level where it was on the console. It was like, oh, the occlusion culling. Something was happening where I think it had to do with the occlusion culling. I was falling off the cliff, like it was getting stuck. No, I'm in between like the environment, like stuff like that. And then I'm googling. So I think I had to restart I think I had to delete my save and start over again. I think. No, I didn't. I think I had to restart the level.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want that. You don't want
Yeah.
those kind of issues. So as a developer, treat it like it's your house. You're inspecting all elements of your house before you release it to the public. Before you let the public, well, I'm not letting the public in my house, first of all. How about this? You have a roller coaster ride, you should be inspecting every piece of the roller coaster. Because that's a liability if something goes wrong and you didn't see it. So inspect every element of your game. And
Mm-hmm.
players are good at doing stuff to your game that you didn't intend to happen. Like there
Mm-hmm.
was times where people are recording. I'm like, why are you doing that? You're not supposed to do that. Like they found an issue. I'm like, you weren't supposed to go there in the first place. So in the next iteration, we fixed it. So now it's not even a problem.
I have broken many games sent to me by developers when I play it on stream. Uh, For those of you watching, remember I played the game from, I think it was Lings, and the final boss script broke. I just kept summoning the boss again and again. I just kept pressing the button again and again. I think I killed them on stream.
I hope that was a demo or a build before the release.
Oh yeah, this was like pre-release, pre-alpha. Like this was not a, but like they were so sure that there weren't any major issues left, or they haven't found anything. And no, I just kept the buttons like spawn the boss, spawn the boss, spawn the boss, and yeah, like again, no matter how sure you are that your game is perfect and wonderful and there's no problems with it, put in the hands of playtesters or show it to people, and they will probably prove you wrong within a few minutes.
Oh yeah, they will find a way, and that's why I do question. Okay, let's say I let like 5 people playtest the game. Then they tell me these issues, right? Okay, we fix them. I scale up to about 1,000,000 people, and now it's so many. The big difference between 1,000,000 versus 5 to 10 people, right? It's a very big difference.
Mm-hmm.
They start finding stuff on such a
Yeah.
mass scale. That is one of my biggest fears. I'm like, what happens when I scale up? And it's like they all get these issues that weren't shown, that weren't apparent
Mm-hmm.
because we had limited amount of people playing it.
Yeah.
But I
And
know I went through every nook and cranny though. So
mm-hmm.
that's why I wonder. That's why it's a good thing to scale up before the release.
Mm-hmm. And to Foreign's comment, I played an adventure game on my own. This was like late last year, and about halfway through, there is a very repetitive or replicable bug where if you do something, the game just soft locks. And it's something that, on the front or on the forum, like there's like 5 to 6 different threads about people getting stuck at the same exact point. And the developer kept saying, "Oh, we'll fix it," and it was never fixed. And again, like issues like that, I think we're past the point where indie developers can kind of, I don't want to say get away with it, but people are kind of accepting of a game because they think, an indie dev, they're not it's not a AAA game. It's okay if a game soft locks or if a game doesn't have those issues. And I think we're past that point. That if you release your game for, even if it's like $5 or $30, whatever, people don't want to deal with a buggy product. Like if there is something that is easily replicable that 90 to 100% of the people play the game are running into, and you don't fix that, that is going to look really harshly on you. And for people who watch like the channel here, we've talked about like how studios will often fail; they will collapse after one game because they may not be able to replicate that success, or people don't trust that company anymore. If you buy a game that you play and it causes your computer to crash, are you really going to want to buy the next 2 to 3 games from that same developer?
Well, No Man's Sky, they did a complete 180.
Mm-hmm. And they're another exception.
I don't remember what year did that game come out.
Oh, goodness, I don't even remember anymore. Let's see.
I have it for my PlayStation 4, but it's completely the reception is. Yeah, they did a 180, but don't release the game. Don't. Yeah, you don't want to be in a position where you release the game and now you're getting killed. Because I think I said before, I don't want to get killed in my reviews. I don't want to get
Mm-hmm.
killed in my reviews. Kill me in my demo and my trailer. When I'm getting in the beta, kill me in the beta test, so we can get this fixed before people start spending money. Kill me in the beta test, okay? Do that, and we're good. My biggest fear, like I said, is when we get the beta test, we'll scale up, like the whole world's gonna see, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But they won't spend money yet, so we're good. So it's not gonna mess up my. I hope it doesn't mess up the sales. I guess in that situation, let's say hypothetically do the beta test, we get some negative feedback, we'll fix it, and then we will show them that, hey, we fixed it. But yeah, don't multiplayer games. I know of a multiplayer game where they had a big audience, but there was bugs and the experience was messed up, and they finally fixed it months later, but the players left.
Yep. And
So,
again, this is why. Oh yeah, I looked it up. No Man's Sky came out in 2016, so it's been a very long time. And this is why we say that 1.0 matters in terms of your game's design. If it comes out day one and it's bad, again, unless you do something like No Man's Sky, and that was a complete, top to bottom rebuild of that game, you're not going to convince somebody that, the horrible experience you had 6 months ago, come on back. It's all been fixed, pinky swear and all that. It's just not going to happen. And again, there are so many games being released that if I hate your multiplayer game or if I hate your action game or real time strategy, I can find another game. I can probably find a few dozen games. And it is very much a risky industry, or indie development has continued to become more and more riskier, especially if you don't know this stuff when you start designing.
oh yeah, like on Steam with the refunds.
Mm-hmm.
So that like this is game very visually appealing. It looks cool, but they have so many bad reviews and it got taken down. I'm like, wow, like that's a shame. But there was a game who is live cast. Oh, I think a family member they see me on the podcast. They're like, let's go. I think. Okay. I got it. It was like in a group chat with my family. But there was actually some indie developer months ago. I don't remember who it was. I think you know the story. I don't remember the name.
Mm-hmm.
Their game. Oh, because it was the 2 hour on Steam. If you play the game in a certain amount of time
Mm-hmm.
or less than a certain amount of time, you can get a refund. And people were beating the game under the refund time. She's kind
Mm-hmm.
of off topic, but this is in regards to how you said like this can mess you up your studio financially. They refunded the game because they beat it under the refund time. So
Mm-hmm.
there was so many refunds, and they said, "Okay, we're not doing game development anymore."
Mm-hmm.
So even though it wasn't necessarily a bad experience, I'm just going off of what you said. Yeah, you messed us up. Well, they
Mm-hmm.
didn't do anything wrong though. Like the game was just beaten under the refund time. They didn't do anything wrong. It's just how the game went. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
imagine you release a game with so many bad reviews that you're forced to give refunds,
Mm-hmm.
and now it just messes you up. You're like, yo, we can't do another game, or you got this big audience, but so many bugs. And now they don't want to give you another chance. Now with an update,
Yep.
but what do? You just rebuild it into something else. You reskin the game. Yeah, so that's why constantly get the feedback, constantly inspect your work. I think people too. It's a possibility that people maybe they're so caught up in the development of the game that they don't want to play the game. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Me, I gotta know everything that's going on within the game. Like I have to know, so that way I'm not sidelined on release day. Like I'm telling you, I do not want to be killed on my review.
No one
Like
does.
I don't want to be killed on my review. So we will inspect, and like I said, we get negative feedback on this beta test. Push back the release date. January just became March. There's nothing wrong with that. This is in
Mm-hmm.
2016. Like we're there, but I don't want to mess up my launch, and I'm more than happy to fix whatever needs to be fixed. That's why I'm constantly getting feedback. But I do wonder though about the gap between, like I said, 5, 10, 100 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
That big gap between that and a million people. What kind of feedback? What additional feedback will we be getting in between those people? That kind of worries me right there. But as long as I reach those people before the release date, don't reach them on release date. Reach them before the release date.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And if you can't do that, your game is just not going to take off. And you don't want to rely on hopefully getting word of mouth 3 weeks, 2 months, 2 years after its release, because that's not how you really run a studio. And again, there's just so much more we can certainly talk about. But as a time check, we are about an hour and a half in, so I think we can probably start to wrap things up. If anyone has any questions for Traevon, please get them in now. But I guess as another point, like regarding Bullock, that right now, are you planning on putting this on Steam, or what platforms are you looking at?
So right now, Steam and itch.io,
Mm-hmm.
we will, I believe, last I checked, I'm going to double check, but I know I've seen it. You can do pre-orders on itch.io. So we'll open up the pre-orders on itch.io, and then you'll just wish list on Steam, because Steam doesn't let any developers do pre-orders. You got to do the wish list. So itch.io and Steam, and if I find other platforms, can you buy on Game Jolt, or am I mistaken?
Mm, that I don't know. I don't do too much on Game Jolt.
Okay, but yeah, itch.io and Steam. Before a user has a question, obviously after the development, we will start working on porting to the consoles. I'll contact the companies necessary to get that, but we want to focus first on this PC build first before working on consoles. But yeah, itch.io. I thought about Epic. Thought about it. It's a possibility,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely Steam. It's a possibility on Epic. It's about frames or fidelity. He said, "I have a question. One question. What is your wait? Is your question about the frames and fidelity, or should I type in the chat,
Yeah, you can
or can
type.
he hear me?"
He can hear you. You can also type in the chat.
Okay. But see, say something. Are you asking about the frame rate and optim? Yeah, we'll go with frame rate.
Yeah, he should be able to hear you because he is watching this live. So people for
Some
solid.
people prefer solid frame rate. Others prefer high res and effects. Well, I will say this: we have graphical settings, so you would adjust the graphical settings according to. Oh, that was my brother. That's my brother. My brother just responded. He just completely like, he jumped on my train of thought. Okay, just asking your preference. So, are you asking my personal preference as a gamer, or are you asking what the preference, what the game is geared towards?
I think he's. I think it's more your preference.
Oh, as a gamer, my preference as a gamer, I'm gonna get the because it's not multiplayer. Like I don't play multiplayer games on my PC. Okay, no, that's a lie. I play Chivalry, but I learned Chivalry's on the consoles now, so I don't think I'm playing Chivalry anymore on the PC. But if I'm playing a single player game, I'm gonna get the best possible graphics as possible with the best performance. So I'm gonna maybe go with high res or ultra. We're just beyond ultra. Like I play Total War, I put it as high as possible, but make sure my performance is good at the same time. Did I answer your question? I'm waiting on foreign user.
Yes, gamer. Eh.
No, I no. He said yes, gamer
Okay.
before I gave the explanation. So
All
I'm
right.
waiting for him to tell me if I properly answered his question or not. While we wait for that, that is funny though how my brother retracted his statement. That is funny. All he said, a guy I work with has a similar way of thinking. Yeah, you just that's like when I was playing the Old Republic on my computer. It's an MMO. So I want the best graphics. When I play my console game, I want the best graphics possible that I can do on this hardware. So I go and I'm like, oh hey, this is slowing me down. Let me explore it now. Now, if you're doing a multiplayer game, yeah, I guess you're gonna have to. You want performance on your multiplayer game. Like if it's super competitive, I've heard stories of people. I don't know if it's real, but they put it on like the lowest resolution possible. The trees don't render out.
Oh yeah.
So the everyone. I don't know if that's real, but I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Why did you think of that? Why did you choose your theme for your game? Is there a reason behind the Mayan thing? Oh, yes, yes. Okay. Where do I even start? Hold on. Let me add a new phone. Make sure. Man, I like how this phone, the battery slowly loses power. That was a good idea. Okay, is there a reason behind the Mayan thing? Oh, and people used to play old school Counter Strike on 4. Okay, okay. For 99 TY, why? Also, what is the game inspired by or influenced by? Okay, these are all good questions. I have the highest frames. Oh, okay, okay. No, I'm gonna stay on track. The reason why I chose this theme for the game is because I noticed that there wasn't that many games that focused on ancient Mexico. Well, I actually had a discussion with someone who they have a graphic novel that takes place during the time of the Aztec Empire, and I said, "Why are we saying ancient if it was like about 500 years ago?" But you don't really see that much in video games that takes place in Mexico before, like pre-Columbian Mexico, pre-Columbian North America. I was inspired by the architecture, like finding out that the architecture actually had color to it. That's when I found out all the temples around the world they were painted. Like what you see now in temples, that's just the paint fading away, like how paint fades. Like, I didn't notice that. I'm answering this question. I didn't know that until 2013, 2012. So it's very inspiring. I like the colors that's used. Just no one really did a game in that setting. They had like Total War. They had their expansion, but there wasn't really a dedicated single player experience that took place in that world until maybe recently. And I started doing a lot of research because I like history, and it really just caught my attention. Made it easy to work on the game every day because I like that setting. And what is the game inspired by and influenced by? Originally, now I'm gonna be honest. Originally, I would say Fable 2 and 3. Originally, like the combat, Sword and Magic, right? Sword and Magic, but it was combat oriented. And also at the time, there wasn't any games I knew of that let you do. I'm answering 99's question. There wasn't any games I knew of that let you do strategy and action. I wanted a game that was like Total War almost, but then you actually go in and you fight the actual battles. Like I think Mountain Blade does that though. So that was my whole big emphasis. One of my unique selling points was strategy and action, but that's not a unique selling point anymore. You still have a campaign map, but we don't really talk about that much. You'll see footage of it. So I want a game you manage your empire, you go in there and you tear up a city. Okay. The other thing that influenced the game would be maybe Force Unleashed, Sword and Magic. That's what influenced it. But the game leans more towards action. Did I properly answer your question, 99 TY? I'm not using fire magic in video games. I love fire magic. Something about fire magic, just using it. Man, you're on a battlefield. And you're like, the horror in the enemy's eyes, and you just start unleashing fire magic. You're like, whoa, like imagine it's medieval times and they bust out a flamethrower. Like, cool. He said I answered this question. Are there any more questions?
Yeah, we'll see.
One of my favorite games was Fable 1. Yes, Fable. Like the idea of just running through towns and causing mayhem. Since you're making an action game, do you have an animator on your team or are you using assets? I tried making an action game prototype and spent hours making animations. Okay. Yes, we have an animator. We had 2 animators. But we have 1 animator now. Jeff. Our last animator, our first animator had the audacity to go get the job. You know, who did Elder Scrolls? This guy's working on our first animator. What the heck? Radical. That's radical. This guy has the audacity to work on Elder Scrolls now. I say that in a sarcastic tone. Like, that is so awesome. He's working on Elder Scrolls now.
Nice.
Elder Scrolls, what the heck with this guy? Okay? So we have an animator. We build a lot of assets from the ground up. As a game developer, though, especially if you're indie, don't be afraid to use pre-existing assets. Like, there were some trees. I noticed that there was trees that were already optimized for games. I just wouldn't use them. They fit well with this game style. Obviously, building structures built from the ground up, textures built from the ground up. My textures, they're built from the ground up. I
Mm-hmm.
used the D-Do and 3Do and Photoshop. The spells. We use the asset pack. Yeah, it's Unity. We use an asset pack for our spells. I don't know if you're gonna notice. This isn't an asset flip. I check my battery percentage. Okay, cool. We're doing good. This isn't an asset flip game, by the way. No, you can't tell. Like, it's not. Thing was built from the ground up. But I'm not gonna spend all this time with a particle system. So we use the spell particles. Um, let's see. There was some animations that we used from animation pack as well. Because like I said, so we have an animator for custom animations. But in other animations though, where if we're limited on time, I'm not gonna sit here and tell Jeff, hey, make these animations over here. No, when we have an asset pack that's just as good as the animations he creates. So he does our custom animations. Let's see, I tried making an action game prototype. I spent hours making animations. So let's see, you need advice on how to take Unity. I know a lot of Unity games get a bad rep for being an asset flip. Let's see, hold on. He said, I'm not going to spend all the time on a particle. Yes, I'm not going to spend all the time on a particle system. I am sorry. When there's much cooler, spells look cool. Josh,
Mm-hmm.
you seen that video of the tidal wave spell being used?
The Buluk one?
Yeah, the one on the Google Drive.
No, I've not had a chance.
Okay, it's all good. Don't worry about it. All I'm trying to say, that is a great way to exit any argument. Yes, why am I spending time on a particle system? That's actually, big studios do that too. They they're not going to build up particles from the ground up. As a solo dev, it would take years. So we leverage the resources we have.
Mm-hmm.
What is the animation style you're going for? Waiting animations are fast like Ninja Gaiden or Japanese action games. See, now this is where I'm about to get confused. The animation style we're going for, maybe it's a combination of both. Combination. This isn't like Dynasty Warriors. No disrespect to Dynasty Warriors. This also isn't Dark Souls. In the middle, maybe Ghost of Tsushima or God of War 4. Hey man, these are good questions, by the way. These are very good questions. Do you have more? I'm looking at the chat. I'm asking the chat. Do they have more questions?
Yeah, like getting like the animation right for these games is such again like another one of those polish elements that if you don't do it right, it just really hurts the sense of the game. Like even like in first-person shooters, we talk about gun feel or gunplay a lot. That if it doesn't, again, like this just really gets at like a lot of action-based games. That if it doesn't feel right to control, or if it just feels awkward, people are just going to tune off from it.
Yes, you want to make sure your animations are in sync with the style of the game. Make sure they're appropriate for the game and the flow. Because the animations, they will determine the flow of the game. Like I said, a good example, like I said, Dark Souls, Dynasty Warriors, God of War. Different animations, different type of games. So you want to make sure you're using the appropriate, even in shooters too. There's a difference between Call of Duty versus Mass Effect. I'm trying to think. I'm thinking versus Halo versus Far Cry. That's all the questions I have. We all know what we want for the game, but the execution takes a lot of mastery, which is why companies spend so much on art and animation. Yes. How do you settle on a difficulty and decide when it's tuned for the average player you're looking to? That is a very good question. So first of all, I suck at video games. But at the same time, I know that as a developer, I'm going to do a lot better in this game than the players. Because I noticed that players take longer to complete levels, longer than I do. I'm like, whoa, the playtime for the game just went up. This is awesome. How do you settle on difficulty and decide when it is tuned for the average player you are looking to attract? Oh, that's quite simple, actually. You test it with the players. Let the players play it. Let your target audience play it, and they'll tell you. They will tell you, and you just ask them up front. Like you ask them, when you're testing, you have specific questions in mind. Like, what are you trying to?
Mm-hmm.
You know what you're trying to achieve with the testing. I need to know. So I ask them up front, and they'll tell me if this is too difficult, too easy. That was a good question.
Yep, and you have to again like figure out what is going to be like the baseline experience of your game. Because if you make it, we just had a conversation that's going to go probably just before New Year about what people want out of a game. Some people want that super hardcore, like Way of the Samurai level of realism where one hit is an instant kill. And while that's great and all, more people may want something a little bit on the easier side. And if you don't figure out what you want or what your accommodations are, you may end with a game that just doesn't appeal to anyone in that market.
Right, we don't do one hit kills. That's not our target audience. That's actually, which that was a good example of what you just said. I know I keep going back to the Dark Souls because that's a very good example as well. As to your target audience, it's like the feel, because one hit kill is a different feel. Oh, my dad, that was my, it was like that. That's my dad, Ernest. He just, what was it, Paulo? What was I saying? Tashima feels completely different. I keep saying this, it's completely different from Dark Souls. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going for a one hit kill. Now we got some techniques in this game where you can do some damage. You can wreck them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta know what you're going for. So you wanna know your target audience, what is it you're trying to do with your game? Yeah, it's cool, it's
Mm-hmm.
unique, but can it be tied to something that's already existing, you know? So the players can identify with it? Like, is it super niche? Like, you need to know it's good to have a triple A example, or not even triple. Like, let me think of an indie game. I'm trying to think. Okay, you got like, is Cuphead an indie game? Like, is that considered an indie game?
It's kind of
Because
debatable at this point, considering their backing from Microsoft.
yeah, no, that's hard. These days, it's kind of hard. Like, okay, Dead Cells was an indie game. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Dead Cells is an indie game, right? Okay, then maybe your example could be Dead Cells. It's an
Mm-hmm.
indie game, but it plays triple A. Like, it's polished. How about that? It's a double A game.
Mm-hmm.
You get the point. Just because, and Josh, you were saying this earlier, like, we're at the point now where we're not just accepting low quality because it's indie game. Your indie game should be high quality. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to do a roguelike, look at Dead Cells. Try to compare. That's what I was saying. I was constantly going back and forth between God of War and Tsushima. That's how I was
Mm-hmm.
able to adjust the game to make it better rather than just being in this vacuum.
Yeah. And you can't design a vacuum these days. Because I've seen developers, again, struggle with that. That they'll just never look at anyone else's games, they'll never try and do anything, and then wonder why nobody's playing my game. And most likely it's because your game is just not up to par with what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, like they always say, it's because I didn't. Oh, I gotta watch how I say this. Um, Make sure your game is up to par for a commercial release because people are going to be spending
Mm-hmm.
money on the game. Now, this isn't a $500,000 car. Okay, I get it, but people are
Mm-hmm.
still like you're trying to get people to spend their money on your product. This is a remind yourself that this is a commercial product, and that actually helped me improve the game. I always say to myself, "This is a commercial product. Is this appropriate for a commercial release?" The indie
Mm-hmm.
game must be either fun, intriguing, or charming. Games are cheaper now. Now time is more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Time is more expensive.
Yep.
I'm trying to plug in my charger. Like time is much more expensive, and you gotta ask yourself like why. Oh, a coworker once told me. He said it was last year. He said you're competing with Ghost of Tsushima. So I said, hey, did you play the demo? And he told me that. He said, hey, He said, hey, right now you're competing with Ghost of Tsushima, and I said that's fair. That is fair right there. Why
Mm-hmm.
should he take time away from Ghost of Tsushima to play Blake? This was last year. when Tsushima first came out.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what I did? I increased the standard of the game. See,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think money is an issue. Free to play games still fill that niche for people now. It's all about time. You have to make it worth their time. Well,
And,
yeah, like it's just make sure your game is fun. Like people, can you build the game that people actually want to play? Like yes,
mm-hmm.
there's some uniqueness to it, might be some nicheness to it, but make sure people actually want to play the game. You don't want to build a game and then kind of find no one wants to play it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna go into examples. Let's see,
Yep. And
Matthew. Hello there.
yep. And I mean, from telling me May's worth hours, and these days it's telling them that it's worth minutes of their time. Because again, they don't need a lot of reasons to stop playing a game. And if your game has just one reason, that may be enough to get them to refund your game. And like we said earlier, like people don't need to hold on to a bad game anymore. If a game pisses me off and it's under 2 hours, it's going back. Steam has that no ask or no trouble policy there. That if it's under 2 hours and I want to return a game, no matter what the reason is, I'm getting my money back. And you have to be very mindful of what consumers expect.
Right, because they're the consumers. I treat the I'm about to plug in this charger. I treat the marketplace and consumers like the ocean. I don't know if you ever swim in the ocean, but there's a tide, right? That tide is gonna you're not negotiating with that tide. Like you better know how to swim. You know what I'm saying? So these
Mm-hmm.
people they're spending money. These people they're spending money on your product. So it has to be good. There's an expectation that the product like I don't understand how you can really. Well, I know, but you need to understand if you release something and you want that transaction. These people, he says VAWR tech. What is that? What is that? I'm gonna just ask.
That
What
is a
is
looks like
that?
that's a bot. Because we've been getting a few bots lately. I guess with just how much things have been growing. Yeah. So let
Well,
me.
first of all, congratulations on the growth. That's that's that reminds me of one time.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the game was pirated in Russia, which I'm like, how do you pirate a game that's not even? Oh, they deleted their message. How do you pirate a game that's not even out yet? But okay. Uh, hold on, I'm plugging in my charger. The bot is made of bot. What? I have to ask, Matthew, are you a bot? Oh, he report. Okay, okay, cool. That's funny how he said that right as I asked. So evidently, Matthew, you are not a robot. Okay, the robot that you reported was a robot. Okay, that we obviously know now. So Matthew is not a robot. But just keep in mind when you're developing your game, this is a commercial product. People are gonna be spending money. Would you spend money on it? You have to ask yourself that. Would
Yep.
you buy the game? It's a game that you want to play. Matthew Crick. Oh yes, yes, I figured that out. He is not a robot. I apologize for the accusation. But what kind of world are we in now where it's like, are you a robot? This is a reference to a meme. Oh, okay, to a meme. Okay. Are there more questions? Because these are good questions, guys.
if
Oh, but you said you can be competing with. Okay, good.
I was gonna say, if not, I think we can wrap things up because we're about to hit 2 hours.
That works for me.
All right. While we wait for any more last minute questions, so in terms of, I guess, some of the more, I guess, some just quick logistics questions for you. So you are planning on, and just to summarize for people who came in late, that Bullock, you are planning for 2022 release. You're looking at a Steam and Itch, and anywhere else.
I'm considering Epic. I have to do more research on Epic,
Mm-hmm.
but I know for surely itch.io. You'll be able to once the trailer drops, you'll be able to pre-order on itch.io, and you'll wishlist on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the development, after we release the game, and we get the response that we're looking for, then I will reach out to Sony Microsoft, and Nintendo for development kits. Oh, what is this game about? Do I answer?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Okay. Buluk Mayan Warfare is an Aztec Mayan themed video game where you use sword and magic against rival tribes and you're going to repel a foreign invasion. Let's see. Let me pull up this description real quick. Let me pull up our press kit where I'll pull up the unique selling points. Well, that's the other thing, just over the years, reiterating or improving the message of the game. Like, what is the game about? Getting better at explaining it in a way where it's actually appealing to people. So you can become. What did you say? He said, "Yeah, man, sounds cool. Tell us about it." Oh, thank you, man. Good to see the game is still progressing. I'm afraid from was it 2018? Your name looks familiar. Yeah, and you've been following the game for a while, so you've seen from the start. It's completely different.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was there when we did when you had the actual videos that you were when we were streaming the videos or the footage from your computer and you were showing it off.
Yes, when we made the 3D switch, that we switched to 3D. So in the game, you become the Nakam, an elite Mayan warrior who wields magic and weapons. You unite your tribe with 4 unique weapon styles because there are 4 different weapons you can use. You use the knife, the Makwaidel, that's their sword, that is the wooden sword with the obsidian. Use a great sword, big sword, and use a spear. You can also, there are 4 tiers. So your weapons, because you're gathering resources as you're in the levels, you're in the cities. You have your flint, obsidian, your enchanted jade, and steel. Because when the conquistadors arrive, they start dropping steel they can use for the weapons. You can unleash devastating magic upon your enemies, research spells, and craft weapons and armor using the resources gained from conquer cities. And you rise to the ranks of the Mayan military with a customizable warrior because there's different armor sets you can unlock, which you probably notice in the screenshots. Let's see. Been a while, miss. I'm not a catfish. Yes, what happened to him? I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I think that was one of my regulars for a time. I think they were Patreon and they stopped. I think they're dealing with having their first baby. So we're on. I think that's the same person.
Congratulations. But yeah, that's all I got for the description. Started uploading some new screenshots recently on Twitter and Facebook and IndieDB. We'll have some. Hopefully, the trailer will drop Monday, and there will be clips. There's good passion behind this project. Yes, thank you. Yes, you followed the progress of the game. You see what the game looked like from day 1 to now. Yes, progress, the iterations, the feedback. Can't wait to show you guys the actual combat in the game.
What was that?
No, I was just saying I can't wait to show
the
world the actual combat in the game, actual footage.
And you are going to be relaunching your website too, right? For it.
Yes, the website is down right now. The website was up last year. I did a test run on something. You're gonna see what we've been working on. Just in regards to the marketing, you will see what we've been working on. But yeah, the website's being rebuilt right now. Where is Shark?
He was on earlier and then he disappeared.
Yeah, I'm like, where did Shark go?
And if you need help with the store page, we are looking for submissions for our store page review show in terms of grading and providing advice.
Definitely. I have noticed that. Like, I wanted to check out. I've seen you post about that, and I said to myself, I need to watch these videos because I think there's some good information. But yeah, I will definitely do that. Yes, Josh, I thank you. I will take you up on the offer, and I will be reaching out to you once we get this up. I believe it's gonna happen because right now our trailer's being worked on right now, and our website's being worked on right now, and they're projected to be done tomorrow. So I'm thinking we're gonna reveal everything on Monday. That's what I'm thinking. So you will be hearing from me very soon. And then I'll send you a demo, the beta. Yeah, I would do that. Yeah, because it's been a while. Yes.
Yeah. And like I review games Wednesday night, so I look at all the indie games then. So if you don't mind me potentially breaking the game on stream like I did the other developers one, Feel free to send it over.
Uh, please do that. Yes. Beta. Like I said, kill me in the beta. Please don't kill me in the launch. Kill me in the beta though. So
There.
definitely Wednesday. So I will hopefully get it to you before Wednesday. That would be awesome. That would be really awesome. Man, it's close, nearby.
All right, but I think with that, my final question for you, Traevon, is: do you have anything you want to end the cast on? You want to say to the fans? Anything excited about Bullock? The floor is yours.
We got stuff you guys haven't even seen yet. That's all I gotta say.
All right.
If we got Star Wars fans out there, think like no, see, no, you're gonna find out. We got stuff you guys haven't seen. Because if you were paying attention earlier in the cast, been very quiet for the last 3 years for a reason. Been very quiet. I can't wait to show the world.
All right.
Definitely, we'll send out the demo. Yes.
All right. Well, Traevon, as always, it has been a pleasure hanging out with you, and we've been kind of passively tracking your progress over the last 5 years. So it's great to see and hear that you're finally reaching like the light at the end of the tunnel, or you're reaching the tunnel and you're going to be getting to the light soon.
It's gonna be so light. Yes. It's gonna be so light. Yes. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. Good luck with your development. Thanks for the talk. Yes, and thank you for the questions.
Yep, and thank you for everybody tuning in live, or if you're watching this recorded as well. But yeah, Traevon, again, don't be a stranger, and when you have more things to announce, get in touch. And yeah,
Definitely.
when it is time for 1.0, I'm sure we'll have more than enough to talk about for another cast.
Post mortem. All right, Josh. It was good talking to you, Josh. Like always.
All right, so
Talk to you soon.
all right, if you want to hang on the chat for 1 second after we wrap things up, or yeah. So with that said, we're going to wrap things up for our cast this week. So thank you to everybody watching. I'll include links to everything Buluk Mayan Warfare related in the show notes in the recorded version. If you are a developer working on a game would like to come on and talk about, we are always looking for guests. You'll find links to our Discord as well as my books on design linked down below. And as always, come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where they are on science of games. Until next time, everybody, take care.